time. Hi guys, hi Lana. She's here. So this call today is regarding menopause and perimenopause. Okay, so obviously one for us females, but obviously if you are a male who has a female in your life, then it is very much relevant to you as well. And I think it's a nice way of educating yourself on how to support that female because we spend approximately a third of our life, which is crazy, either going through the menopause or having gone through the menopause. So I think for a lot of females as well, especially my generation or older, aren't really given any kind of formal education when it comes to this part of our life, even though it is a big part of it. So I wanted to keep this call very informative. I didn't want to lead with too much of my interpretation based on experiences because I can only go off the experiences of clients that I've worked with. And that might mean that if you're watching this, your experience will be different. So I've tried to keep it as science-based as possible, with obviously some bits thrown in there. And then if there's anybody on the chat who wants to come on and give their own personal experience, then obviously that's welcome as well. So I'm going to get up my presentation. 1 minute, guys. And we're going to go for it. So it is going to be quite sciencey. If there's anything that I go over and you're like, oh my God, Sam, what is that? I'm trying not to use too many scientific terms, but I will obviously speak to you in more detail if you need me to. So first of all, it's important for us to understand what the menopause is, because sometimes it's a term that gets bandied about, and I think it's important to understand what it actually is. So the menopause is when your periods stop due to lower hormone levels. It usually affects women between the ages of 45 to 55. That's an average. It can be before. I've not really known anyone for it to be after, but hey ho, it can happen. Estrogen and progesterone are the primary female hormones related to reproduction. And when ovarian function declines with age, ovulation doesn't occur regularly. So this leads to irregular or missed periods. Then eventually the ovaries, which is obviously our sex glands, stop ovulating altogether and periods stop completely. This results in lower levels of estrogen and progesterone production by your ovaries. Menopause can happen naturally or for other reasons such as surgery to move the ovaries, or the uterus, cancer treatments like chemo, but sometimes the reason is unknown. So that's menopause. That's when our periods have actually stopped, okay? Perimenopause. Oh, Lisa's here. 1 moment, guys. Fashionably late as always. So perimenopause is when you have symptoms of menopause, but your periods have not completely stopped, okay? Perimenopause ends, and then when you reach menopause, you've not had a period for 12 months. So that's when you know that have gone through the menopause, your periods have stopped for 12 months. So if you have like 3 months, you've not had a period, you've not menopause, you're perimenopause, okay? Menopause and perimenopause symptoms can have a big impact on your daily life, and this is what we are interested in, girls, okay? But I don't want this call to obviously seem like doom and gloom either, because it's not. It's just that we need to be aware of it. It can affect your daily life, including relationships, social life, family life, and work. It can feel different for everyone. You may experience a number of symptoms, or you might have none. You lucky buggers. Symptoms usually start months or years before your periods stop, okay? The first sign of the perimenopause is usually, but not always, a change in your normal pattern of your periods, okay? So they might become irregular. And I've had lots of clients who have had this happen. As well, a irregular period, sometimes isn't a result of perimenopause. So if you do have irregular periods, then it may be worth consulting your doctor. Okay, so bit of science. Let's get into the hormones. So the main hormones that are going to affect the changes and the side effects that you feel during the menopause, perimenopause, is number one, estrogen. All right. Estrogen is responsible for regulating important processes in your skeletal, cardiovascular, and central nervous system. So it's going to impact your overall health. Okay. The main way that we produce estrogen is in our ovaries. All right. Estrogen is going to affect your cholesterol, blood sugar levels, bone and muscle mass, circulation and blood flow, collagen production, moisture in your skin. So I know a big subject that we've been speaking about in the group is about collagen, which naturally declines as we age, brain function. So you might get brain fog. And then I wanted to include this as well because I'll speak about this a little bit more later in the call. So the estrogen is the group of hormones, okay? But specifically, estrone, which is E1, is a primary form of estrogen that your body makes after menopause. And this is produced in the adrenal glands. So I wanted to put that in there, even though it does sound very scientific, because it's going to make more sense when I explain how we can manage the symptoms. Estradiol, which is E2, is a primary source of estrogen in your body during your reproductive years, all right? And that's obviously produced in the ovaries. But that's the main potent form of estrogen. Estrone isn't as potent as estrogen, and E1 is what we will use after we've gone through the menopause. Next up is progesterone. Now, progesterone gets a bad rap, but it does several things. So, in our reproductive years, it's responsible for the thickening of your uterus for implantation. So, you might have heard the term progesterone spike on your cycle. I am going to do a different call just around menstrual cycle as well. I didn't want it to be both together. But the progesterone spike, when that decreases, that's what causes the uterus to come away, all right, the lining of the uterus. It regulates bleeding during menstruation, supports a pregnancy once contraception has occurred, helps to improve your mood. So that is a big one for peri and menopause, and it supports thyroid function as well. Okay, so let's get into the symptoms. Again, like I said, this can feel different for everyone, and I want to emphasize that you might have a number of different symptoms, you might have none. First one is mental health, okay? This is a big one. So, perimenopause, menopause can affect your mood. You might feel low mood, you might feel anxious, you might have mood swings, you might feel low self-esteem, okay? So, for the guys who have a regular menstrual cycle at the moment, who know have experienced PMS symptoms, imagine that, but you can't predict when it's going to happen. It could come at any point during the month. So it might feel like, why am I feeling like this? Well, it's due to these hormone fluctuations and decreasing as we age. Problems with memory and concentration. So that might feel like brain fog. I mean, I get that sometimes, but yeah, hopefully I'm not going through perimenopause just yet. I think this is an important bit to note as well, and I wanted to put this on here as well. Because at this time in our life, not only are hormones changing, but our life can be changing too. And for a lot of people, when we get to about that age, sometimes can be a time for many people to be potentially empty nesters. We're starting to care for aging parents or experience other major transitions potentially to our career. It might be an opportunity to start a new phase of life. So I wanted to see that as a positive, yeah? And while that can ultimately lead to some good places, it can also cause a lot of stress. So these two things linked together, perimenopause and going through these things, it can be a lot to deal with, okay? The impact of hormone changes on mental health varies. You might notice a major impact, and you may feel like your life is a little bit derailed, okay? Physical symptoms. So you might be going, yeah, got all of these, or you might be like, nah, not got any. So these can include hot flushes, difficulty sleeping, which can be due to the hot flushes and night sweats, which can in turn make you feel tired the next day, and irritable. Obviously, with the tiredness can come cravings and hunger levels as well as your hunger hormones are disrupted. Palpitations, so your heart beats suddenly, which becomes more noticeable. Just to put your mind at ease, gals and guys, palpitations are not usually Oh, Kelly's here. Hopefully. One sec, let's see. So palpitations are not usually a serious thing to worry about, but again, just with anything else, if you notice any changes, it might be an opportunity to speak to your doctor. Headaches and migraines that are worse than usual. Muscle aches and joint pains. Obviously, muscle aches is a common one for us with regular training, but more than normal. Bone loss, which is an important one. Changes in body shape. So you might have heard the term middle age spread, and weight gain, which we'll definitely get onto in a moment. Reduced sex drive. I mean, who's got time for that anyway? Only joking. And vaginal dryness and pain, itching, discomfort during sex. And I think it's important to talk about that as well. I think obviously our generation and the one above sometimes can just hide away, and it's important that we look at all of the symptoms that are going on. Sorry to hear, but the symptoms can last for months or years, and they might change with time. So you might have hot flushes, they can disappear, then you might pick up reduced sex drive, and then that might go, etc. And some of the symptoms can carry on after your periods have stopped. Right, let's get into this bit. So I've taken this off the one of the research papers. Like I said, I based all of this information on research as opposed to going in with my own personal bias and experience. So if any of you want the research papers that I've taken it from, then reach out and you can read them in full. So regarding weight gain, now, yes, weight gain can happen, but I wanted to put this in there. So I'm going to read it word for word. The hormonal changes of menopause tend to make it more likely that women will gain weight around the abdomen rather than the hips or thighs. That's a given, okay? But hormonal changes alone don't necessarily cause the weight gain, okay? So we can't be blaming the hormones in its entirety. Instead, it's usually related to aging as well as lifestyle and genetic factors. For example, muscle mass typically goes down with age, and we'll speak about the ways that you can reduce that, while fat increases. Losing muscle mass slows the rate at which the body uses calories, okay? The more muscle mass we have, the more calories we burn. That rate is called metabolism. This process can make it more difficult to stay at a healthy weight. I don't like the word weight, so we'll use healthy body fat levels. And if you continue to eat as you always have, but don't do more physical activity, you're likely to gain body fat. Most people do less as they age. So paying attention to your activity and trying to move more will help you keep healthy body fat levels. So basically, all you guys watching this, pretty much doing everything that you can to stop this occurring. And there's lots within our control that we can influence. So, big one. And if you only just jumped on the call, go and watch this call back because we speak about where estrogen or estrone is produced, and stress management is going to be a massive one as you're going through the menopause. Okay, so the main role of our adrenal glands, which is uh, where we control stress, is to allow us to cope with that. Okay, so you might have heard the term, which is big at the moment, adrenal fatigue, which isn't actually a thing, so don't get too caught up on that. But if we are chronically stressed, the adrenal glands are required to produce larger amounts of cortisol and DHEA, and the glands might not be able to keep up with the demand for sex hormone precursors. So what that means is, as we go through the menopause, no longer is our estrogen levels produced by the ovaries, is going to be the adrenal glands that do that. So we have to focus on stress management even more so. So the role of the adrenal glands is to take over the role of the ovaries. The adrenal glands produce a hormone called, that word, I'll have a go, androstenedione. Anyone want to pronounce that better? Have a go. And that converts into the most potent estrogen known as estrone. All right. That conversion takes place in the fat tissues. It's also converted into testosterone, And obviously, as females, we have testosterone, but in less than males. And it's an important hormone that we have. And it is important because it can undergo a process of aromatization to convert into another form of estrogen called estradiol. All right. So, in layman's terms, we got to focus on stress management, gals, especially going through the menopause. Okay. Big thing, which is always what I will go to, is number one, keeping your body healthy with regular movement and nourishing food. It's basically everything that I teach to every single client, but even more so for you guys. You might feel like you can't get away with as much as what you did when you was younger. And that's just how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. We have to have regular movement. We have to eat nourishing food. We have to move around more because our metabolism down regulates. Hydration is going to be key to keep up bodily functions. Relaxing morning routine to work on that stress management, which I know a lot of you guys are focusing. Good quality sleep hygiene, so having a good bedtime routine, putting the phone away before bed so we're not getting that disruptive blue light, and trying to stick to a regular nighttime routine. Okay. And I think the one that people under focus on, which needs to be focused on, is the stuff outside of that. So keeping in touch with your friends, focusing on connections, being able to speak to people about it. Luckily for you guys, hopefully you feel like you can speak to me and the other girls that are going through this as well. But it really is like a problem shared sometimes can be a problem half, knowing that you're being listened to. So I wanted to put that in there. The next one is hormone replacement therapy. Okay. Now, I've not put a great deal of information about this because it's up to you to discuss with your doctor. There are natural ways of supporting your body, namely the things that I've just mentioned, but nothing is going to regulate your hormones unless you go on hormone replacement therapy. Okay. Some women don't want to do that. And again, it's totally personal preference. There are different things that you can do. But hormone replacement therapy has been extensively researched and obviously is a safe therapy for a lot of females. It just means that sometimes you go the first time and they've not got it right. It's just like with a contraceptive pill. Some pills work okay for some females. Some females get a lot of side effects with certain contraceptive pills. And it's the same with HRT. Sometimes it's about finding the right ratio for you. So if you are genuinely struggling, HRT can be like quite a big saving grace for a lot of women. And there's no, what's the word? There's no, what's the word that I'm looking for? There's no like bad thing about going on it. Like there's no, you shouldn't feel bad if you need to go on HRT, basically. I've got quite a few clients who are on HRT who are absolutely loving life. So if you're at that point, go and speak to your doctor. I'm not a doctor. That's why I've not put too much information about that. Supplements, all right. Now, as a coach, I've been on either end of the spectrum with this. I've been very much for natural supplements to manage the menopause. And where I'm at right now is just reading the research on it. So I just want to say be quite wary of this. Just with any supplement, it's a supplement. It's not going to get rid of the actual issues and problems, okay? Some research is very much backed and financed by supplement companies. So if you read into the small print of supplements, even supplements that are not to do with the menopause, any supplements at all, just read into who's financing the research, okay? Because you'll be surprised. And whilst the natural supplements may alleviate some of the symptoms, whether that's actually or placebo, they won't have any direct impact on your hormone levels, okay? They just can't do that. And this is a quote that I've taken from a research paper. Again, I'll give you this one if you want to read through it. Herbal products are frequently used. However, there is no consistent evidence to support their efficacy Fuck's sake. Efficacy, yay, and safety. There is added concern that when used in combination with other medications, which you should be able to cross-reference and see the interactions, that some herbal products could pose serious health risk, and all functional doctors who deal with natural supplements will back that up as well, okay? You have to be really careful when it comes to supplements in terms of natural ways of dealing with it. Vitamins and minerals may be important for women who are risk at deficiencies. Blood tests are needed to obviously decide that, but do not seem to reduce menopausal symptoms, okay? So, I know that was a lot of information to take in. Feel free to make as many notes as you want. And if any of you ladies who are on the call want to step in with any questions, with any real life experiences, with any things that have helped you, I know last time we did a call, it really helped the other people who watched it back to know that there are other people, but don't feel like you are pressured into doing so.
I'll speak then. So I am perimenopausal. I was diagnosed as being, is diagnosed the right term? As being perimenopausal 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so as a woman, you notice changes in your body. So I noticed like thinning of hair, and just noticed like when I was supposedly coming on my period, changes with how my body used to react. It wasn't reacting in the same way, and I wasn't getting the same symptoms. And I've had, going through those slides, everything we've spoken through, Sam, I've had periods of having some of those feelings, and at the moment I feel great. I'm in a really good place, but you and I have been working on a lot of things to help me feel better about myself internally as well as externally, which I think is really helping. One of my questions is around, foods. Are there particular foods that people eat that they find help them with the, because I still get the PMT symptoms. So they're things that people eat that help them with those, or anything that anybody else has done that they've found has helped them with the perimenopause symptoms.
Again, I could only go off the research and what's helped other clients. And believe it or not, again, it is, and it might seem like a bit of a get out me saying this, but it is the general kind of guidelines that we give for a healthy eating approach with flexible dieting, which is not excluding anything that you want to eat. So having a little bit of chocolate, allowing yourself to do that. There is evidence to suggest that, but this is mainly from like a hot flushes perspective, that reducing the amount of alcohol and caffeine that you consume during those times may help. But from a cravings perspective, it is generally like eating whole foods, staying hydrated. Sleep can massively affect those cravings as well. So again, it is. And it is, when you look through all the research, you go through it and you're like looking for these secret foods, and there isn't any. So it is just managing the cravings at that moment in time and giving yourself grace to do that as well, understanding that it's going to be an ongoing part of your life. So just giving yourself a little bit of a go ahead to have those foods and not feel bad about it as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything that helps you, Lisa, foods wise? Oh, she's not on.
She's on mute.
She's on mute.
She can't get off mute, bless her.
Never mind. We'll have a convo. We'll have a convo after it. But
I think I've stopped drinking alcohol.
Sam?
Yeah, go on.
I'm gonna go like when we was talking about our bloods, like getting my blood work done. Is there a specific hormone I should ask for in the blood?
When you have your blood test done, Kelly, it'll give me the full spectrum of all of your hormones. If it's the blood test that I've...
And will you be able to tell from them?
Yeah. So, are you experiencing irregular periods at the moment as well?
Me, well, I don't have one because of my pill, but everything else that you've said, literally on that list, is me.
Right.
So, and like Alan says it all the time, you need to go to the doctors and get tested for it. But we're gonna go and get a private blood test done anyway. And I was just wondering, instead of going to the doctors and waiting for an appointment for that, would it show on a private blood test?
The thing is, when you're taking contraception, that is going to influence what your hormone levels come back on your blood test anyway. So we won't necessarily be able to take the ratio of estrogen and progesterone in
If
consideration.
I found that there's only one hormone in the pill that I take, because I can't, if I take any other pill than the pill that I'm taking, I turn into a lunatic. So it just literally gives me one hormone. If I
Mm.
find out what hormone that is, will that be able for
Yeah, so
like
basically, with hormones through the perimenopause, but mainly through the menopause, as you're getting closer towards that, they're going to decline. So sex hormones are going to naturally decline. So you can
yeah,
look at the ratio between androgens, which is your testosterone levels, and the amount of progesterone and estrogen in the blood. But again, that'll depend on what hormone you're taking on the pill, because
right,
the two hormones interact together. So even though you're only taking one hormone, it can actually have an effect on the other one, if that makes
right,
sense.
yeah,
Um, so I wouldn't. The general guidelines is if you think you're going through the menopause, is to come off contraception, but don't use that as a thing to say, right, Sam said to come off the pill. Just have a conversation with the doctor as well. But the
right,
good
okay,
thing about doing the blood test is it will show up any deficiencies which could be causing which could be causing you to have like other symptoms. Because one
yeah,
of the things that can show itself, especially within females of reproductive years, is PCOS. Like that can have an effect on your hormone levels. So
right,
you don't really want to get like the two confused. So I think probably going to the doctors and getting a private blood test is going to be the way forward, because what the NHS do is they compare you to an average. They don't compare you to functional health markers, which is like the
right,
optimal levels.
okay.
Is
So
I'll
my
do it
volume
then.
on now?
you're
Can you
Yeah,
here.
hear me
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my God,
yeah,
I'm not a typical person. That was like way above my station. What I was going to say before what I started to say was about stress management. Like that for me is the biggest thing, because I didn't realize I've been perimenopausal for 12 months. I started losing hair at a rapid rate of
Yeah.
knots, and genuinely thought it was a post-COVID thing. I thought this was like you speak to the hairdresser and they're like, oh, loads of women are losing their hair after COVID. And I thought that was the case. And then my periods became really erratic and were problematic, and there's loads of things going on. But stress is a big thing. I've noticed, like when I'm not stressed, the symptoms are nowhere near as bad.
Yeah.
I'm doing things for my hair. I'm taking supplements for my hair and things like that. I'm not taking any additional supplements as per se for the menopause. I'm just trying to really optimally be as healthy as I can. But one thing I've noticed is my ability to manage stress is nowhere near as good as it was. I used to be able to spin 400 plates and I could keep them all going. And I think that's been the hardest thing, is going like, what the hell is happening here? Like, why aren't I managing the things which then in turn causes more stress? So
yeah,
for me, it's been knowing all this and going, right, okay, what can I do to minimize this going forward? And that's been a relatively new thing for me that I've just realized. So that's my personal take on the whole thing.
Stress
So yeah, big
management
word.
techniques for you, Hon. What do you think has worked the best? I know it's a personal
So,
thing, but
no, so the first thing is, if I don't get enough sleep, I'm a nightmare. Everything goes to pot if I don't get enough sleep. And my sleep has been another thing that's been massively affected. And I didn't realize what this was as such, but I will wake up 4 or 5 times in the night. I will normally, my head hits the pillow and I'm asleep. So food prep, I've said this to you today in my check-in. Food prep's always been something I've done when I've been like fat loss phases, I've now realized food prep for me is not just about fat loss. I've got to have my food prepped because because I'm tired a lot of the time, and because I'm not coping with spinning as many plates, I feel like I'm stressed. I feel like a lot of really bad eating habits have come back again. And I feel really bad because you then look at that as guilt and go like, why? I'm so past that stage. Why is this happening again? And it's the realization of, because circumstances have changed. It's not that you're now weaker, it's that circumstances have changed and you need to change the parameters a little bit. So it's definitely an educational thing. I've got teenagers. So what you said before about circumstances changing and everything. I've got a young son who thinks he's a stud, and so that's a massive stressor as a mum. So there's loads of things that happen in your life, don't they, where you have to. And I think sometimes you don't know it's even happening. You
Yeah.
don't, because everyone's symptoms are different. Sometimes you don't know it's this. You think it's you. And well, why aren't I coping with this? Why can't, but then it's only when you sit back and you listen to things like this and you go, you know what? I'm suffering from 6 or 7 of those things
Yeah.
at once. It's obviously, it's obviously this. So I think it's also an inability to accept the aging process. I do not accept it. I do not want to accept the aging process. So I think there's a bit of denial there as well. And I think it's just a case of like facing that as well. If I'm being really honest and going, you're not a spring chicken anymore. You need to accept this and deal with this part of your life, if I'm being brutally honest.
Yeah. But going back to the fact that we're spending like a third of our life either going through or having gone through the menopause, I think it's an opportunity to go, right, okay, this is what's
Yeah.
happening. What can I
Yep.
actually do about it? And like you say, it's not accepting it, it's what can I do to improve and make it better. But the good
Yeah.
thing is, and I know obviously I've gone through all of that, but the key drivers that are going to help you get through it is what you've already been doing. It just is going to feel a little bit harder in certain
Mm.
moments, and that's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to put yoga in, and I have started to genuinely like meditate. I'm trying really hard. I find that very, very difficult to be still and be quiet. And I'm a million miles an hour. So I'm
Mm.
really trying with that because I feel like that just sort of resets me a little bit. And I think that is a massive help with stress.
Have a look at
Um,
yoga nidra as well. That's
okay.
a type of yoga that's known to reset the nervous system. I know Sian, Vanessa's mum's really big on that. And we did it
Okay.
as part of the circle. So it's not something that you have to go into like deep stretches or anything. It's just awareness of different areas of the body.
Okay.
So that's a really good one to do before sleep. You can actually do it before you listen. Well, you can listen to it before you go to bed.
All right. Okay. Thank
Yoga
you.
Nidra.
Yoga nidra.
Yes. Anybody else want to ask any questions or add anything in? But you can always ask me after the call as well.
No.
No?
This has been super helpful, so I appreciate you
Oh,
discussing
I
this topic
appreciate
on
you
the
guys
call.
as
Yeah.
well. It's one that everybody needs to know about. And like I said, they don't teach it in schools, they don't teach it in colleges, and yet all of us females are going to go through it. So yeah, it needs to be talked about more. I'm probably going to do more in-depth calls on little maybe snippets of it, more so an overview. But yeah, thanks for joining, guys, and I will speak to you all soon. Make sure you've all done your
Just a quick
check-ins.
one, Sam. Can I
Yeah,
get the beginning of this? Because I was dropping Blake off at his gym class.
yeah,
So I only joined at like 7:15. So
yeah,
I only got in like all the listings of everything like non-sex drive and all that. So I went from there. And I'm
yeah.
thinking that well, that's just me already before you've even said anything.
I've
If I'd even
recorded.
done that said you said 3 things. I thought, well, that's me. There's me. So I can get it back, yeah. The beginning.
Yeah, I've recorded the full thing, so you just watch the beginning of it, hon.
All right, no worries.
All right,
Well, thank you
guys.
very much.
Thanks for
Thank
joining,
you.
And
Thank you.
see
and
you
I'll see you
later.
all soon.
Bye.
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 Bye.